What's up, y'all? So it's the All Around Bros. As y'all know, 2024 Combine just wrapped up. We have some things to talk about. Bro, I want to know your thoughts on whose stock increased the most at the Combine this year.
For sure. Well, Jamar, I got three guys based off of what I saw over the weekend. I got Xavier Leggett, Joe Milton, and Xavier Worthy. All of us saw what Xavier Worthy was able to do, breaking the combine record for the official fastest 40 time. Congratulations to him. I think his stock went up because, like I said, he's the fastest guy ever in that distance, and especially with him putting up 13 touchdowns this season, having a 1,000-yard season, I really am kind of comping him to someone like a Devontae Smith. I think because of the impact and role he had at Texas, he'll be able to fit right in with any scheme that needs a deep threat. He's 6'1". He was a little on the lighter side in that upper 170s range, but I think with the speed, and all the NFL rules where you can't touch these guys, I think he answered any questions. Joe Milton, man, I comp him to like an Anthony Richardson. Completed 64% of his passes this year, 20 touchdowns, but only 5 interceptions. So that means he does know how to take care of the ball. But I think just the way that the ball jumps off his arm, man, I think people are going to be willing to draft him higher than maybe he really would have, especially the confidence he oozed, man. In those drills, you could just see he took over the drill. All the receivers wanted to run routes with him by the time we got down the middle of that drill. And he also showed a lot of touch on those deep corner routes, on the out route. He showed that he's not just a guy that has to spin the ball as hard as he can each time. I think with the right coaching, he'll be good. And Xavier Leggett is somebody that I've actually watched a lot this season, just going back to my receiver days, looking at guys who put really good routes on tape. Leggett, man, he's one of the best in the business at stopping at full speed, and to see his 6'3", 220 frame and him being able to run that 4.39, man, I think he's going to be moving up the top of a lot of people's boards in terms of receiver. What about you, Jamar?
Yeah, man, I think those are all solid. All solid. I got to kick mine off with, a Wolfpack baby. Peyton Wilson from NC State, linebacker, ran the fastest 40-yard time at like 4.43 that day. So for his group, he ran it the fastest. He had, I think, like a 34.5-inch vertical. The dude has just about all the tools. I mean, one of the best defensive players in college football in 2023. I think that he has definitely made a statement to get back on everybody's minds in terms of the linebacker position because he plays it almost like a safety. He had a pick six during the season. He had a couple of interceptions. I think that he reminded everybody that he is who everybody believes he is. The next person I have is J.J. McCarthy from Michigan. I slept on this dude because he didn't pass a whole lot. But he came out there and he said, look, I'm a legitimate threat. We won the national championship and I was the quarterback for a reason for that team. Dude has a cannon for an arm. I thought that he didn't, but he showed when he was doing some of those just throwing the go routes, he overthrew some of those folks and almost looked like he did it on purpose to show, I'm not no slouch. He threw it, I think, 1 mile per hour slower than Joe Milton when they were testing the speed of your ball. So the dude has an arm. And he has that competitive edge that you really want on that NFL level. And he kind of commanded the room a little bit too when he was talking. He had that swag about him. Lastly, Michael Penix, man, his medicals came back fine. I think that was the biggest thing. And that was the only thing that these scouts were looking at was, are your medicals going to clear at the combine? His medicals came back fine. And you saw him throwing the ball with great touch, great accuracy. Everybody, from what I've read and from the eye test, it seems like he's the best pure thrower in this class. So I think that he's going to be something special. I think all three of those guys raised their stock this combine for sure. For sure.
No, I agree with you, man. Again, the combine, that's what the moment is for. All the guys who are going to be taking top 10, picking the draft, like you said, barring some medical issue that wasn't known about before, a lot of those guys are positioned or solidified. So it's really about the people that didn't get as much tape watched by these scouts, didn't get all the TV games, maybe didn't have as much buzz around their team, so they got overlooked during the season. This is a moment for those guys.
Yeah, for sure. Whose draft stock would you say dropped the most at the combine?
Whose draft stock dropped the most? Man, and I kind of even struggle to say dropped because I'm not sure how high it was in the first place. I know, man, quarterback for Notre Dame, Sam, man, there was just some times in the drills that you could just kind of see that his arm really wasn't there. He was one of the quarterbacks that did run the 40, didn't run a fast 40, in my opinion. Unless you were going to surprise some people, I wouldn't have put on tape in people's minds that, man, his arm isn't the strongest, and he may not even be able to get away from pressure. So, and you can just even kind of see in the drills with the receivers, you can even see the receivers kind of losing confidence in them. Those guys either slowing down on the route, not running full speed because they didn't know where the ball was going to end up. They didn't want themselves to look bad because he wasn't getting them the ball. But, yeah, man, I think this would have been a moment to at least show accuracy. But I think his stock went down because you mentioned JJ only throwing 1 mile under Joe Milton in that miles per hour track. And Sam did what, like 10 miles per hour or less? So, man, I think he just came across as looking like good quarterback who was able to get it done for the most part in college. But in terms of, to use Cam's word, that game changer mentality with either his foot speed or his arm strength, able to push the ball in places where the play may get off schedule, I think his hurt a little bit. What do you think about that, man?
Yeah, man, I had the same guy selected, unfortunately. I mean, he ran a 4.8, you know what I'm saying? Like, I could probably run a 4.8 now, and I'm probably what, 13, 14 years older than him. I mean, he was in college for a long time. A lot of these guys are looking on the NFL are looking at age to grade. I don't know if that's really fair, but they
Right.
are saying, like Michael Penix is 24, and I think Sam Hartman's 24. And they're like, well, that's already a couple years into your what would be a developmental time period as a rookie for a
Right.
normal, quarterback coming at. So yeah,
Mhm.
that was it for me as well, you know.
Unfortunate, man. And again, I didn't really see much tape of Sam during the year, so I can't even really say that I liked him or didn't like him. So from an unbiased standpoint, just seeing him out there with the talent around him, and again, barring some of the top guys, it's like I just didn't really see it. But hey, man, what do you think about Caleb holding out? One, from all the drills, but holding out his medicals, like he's not going to do the medical at the combine. How do you feel about that? You think that's a powerful strategic move to kind of assert his really firmness on, man, I only want to go to a selected number of teams, and if I meet with you and you're somebody I want to give my medicals to, it's going to be an exclusive group? Or do you think that's going to kind of do you think that's going to be off-putting to some of these owners and GMs looking to invest in a guy that it really will want to buy into the team and be the franchise guy?
Right. That's a great question. There was a former GM who spoke on it a day or two ago, and he said, "Look, man, if you're not answering my questions or you're not doing the medicals, then I'm not drafting you." I think
Right.
that speaks pretty loud. I mean, for me personally, I think it sets a bad precedent because it's almost like when folks started sitting out of bowl games,
Right.
a couple decades ago when that started. It was like, yo, I got other things, I don't want to get hurt, or I don't want the last impression in college of somebody seeing me do, poorly. And I think the combine's the same. It can particularly get to the point at some point where people just start sitting out in mass. I don't think that's good because you're not allowing people to see your competitive nature. Like your boy Xavier Worthy. I mean, he ran a 4.25 the first run, and then for his second try, he ran a 4.21. You know what I'm saying? So he was like, "Yo, I want to compete against myself and push myself to see if I could get it even faster than 4.25." And when you have people sitting out, it's just like you're saying, I don't want to make a mistake. Well, when you're on the next level, getting paid millions
Yeah.
of dollars and you're a franchise guy, are you going to be afraid to make a pass? Are you going to be afraid to do something that may be risky but needs to be done? So that's kind of how I view it. Is it shows that there's almost a lack of competitive drive. And
Mm.
I think that if you're a top of your particular group, whether it's receivers, quarterback. I mean, you could afford to do it in this day and age to sit out, but if people are real close neck and neck, you could have your chance, your spot jumped and leapfrogged. And so, if you're arrogant enough to think that, yo, I'm secure, hey, let's see what happens. But I'm not a big fan of it because it could set a precedent
Right.
that others can follow and more folks can just not show up. What do you think?
So absolutely, man. I think just like our last conversation talking about the NIL, that adds into it too. These guys are coming into these situations with the endorsements, with the money already. Again, we're talking about these top 10 picks. So these guys are going to be in that situation coming into even being able to feel like they can demand, hey, I want to go to this team or that team, and I'm not going to give medicals or even take a meeting and answer questions with the teams that I don't want to. I think that is going to continue to pile on, especially as the players have more power. But ultimately, this will be something that we see. The league could try to make a statement against a guy like Caleb and say, hey, we don't care how good you are. And he could fall down just because I don't even want to call it character because he's not been in trouble off the field. But in terms of football, quarterback, franchisee type character, they may figure, oh, he's not a team guy, he's a me guy. And we're willing to pass on him just to make sure we send the message to everybody else. This is not going to be what goes on in the league, or it may not even be a message. It really just could be, hey, man, we don't want to be thinking in our heads spinning about what guy is going to come into the room based off of what he's done, whether combine, pre-draft, or what he was doing in college. So I definitely think I agree with you. It could set a bad precedent for guys in the future to really trying to treat the NFL like free agency before they've even thrown a pass.
Yeah, for sure. Now, let me ask you this, man. Like, if you're, knocking on the door for a Super Bowl, or if you're, picking early, do you think that teams should focus more on free agency and dump a bunch of money out there if they got to spend versus trying to draft and develop?
Absolutely, man. I think it's because that's what these other teams are doing. We don't live in the era now of maybe just one superstar on offense, one superstar on defense, and a bunch of really good, solid supporting players. We have teams going all in on a couple years and still not being able to do it. So I think it's a talent league, man, especially with all the rules changes over the past couple years. It's really garnered toward offensive players. So even the defensive players have to be better to be able to still make an impact within the rules that limits them. Man, you see these guys like Miami got Tyreek Hill, Jalen Ramsey, they got Chubb, adding these pieces you see with the 49ers went and did, going to grab Chase Young late, getting Christian McCaffrey. I think if you're going to be going against those teams, like if you're trying to win a Super Bowl, you're trying to knock on the door, man, you're already going against these really, really heavily touted teams, and they're being built through free agency. I think the build-around position is still the quarterback position, like we're seeing with a Tua or a Brock Purdy, being able to draft a guy. In Brock Purdy's case, it was kind of accidental, but hey, it worked out. Being able to draft a guy, build around him while he's young as well as inexpensive, so you do have the money to spend on the pieces around him. So we're not asking him to be the guy that has to take over the game by himself. I think that's a two-headed positive. There's not as much pressure on these young quarterbacks because they have veteran locker rooms. They have guys who can teach them how to do it, as well as when it comes to the field of play, they're not being asked to do as much as if, say, Caleb Williams or a Justin Fields, a guy who gets drafted very high to a team without much talent around him. Now they're struggling, and confidence could waver, injuries happen, and then now you have the league trying to call you a bust when it really was just poor management of assets. So, man, I think that's the way to do it. I think you draft a quarterback and then you throw your money in free agency. And, man, the building over 10 years can happen, but I think as fast as things are moving now, these owners, they want to get a championship now. I think these owners would be more happy to get a Super Bowl today and then miss out on the playoffs for the next 4 years versus getting to divisional round, getting to the AFC Championship year after year after year, but not being able to push over the hump.
Yeah. I think that's real, man. I think that's real. And we're seeing something similar in college, man, where, dude, you don't even really need to go after the 4 and 5-star kids. If you got a strong NIL collective and you got some boosters with some money, you know, and you at a good location like a Miami or Southern Cal, somewhere, you just say, look, kid, guaranteed $1 million if you're starting, plus some additional, you know, sweetener we could do. And you could build an amazing program through the portal. You know, 15 years ago, you couldn't do that. 10 years ago, you couldn't do that because you had to sit and all this other stuff. Now you come in and play, you could just say, look, we're going to pay you. Oh man, it's almost like forget developing. And I think that's one of the sad parts of the game, college and NFL, is why develop when we just pay for somebody that's already here, we go win a championship.
Right. But I mean, hey, that's the world that we live in tech, medical, engineering. Hey, you may have a brilliant young mind, but if there's someone that's been in the business for 20 years that you don't have to teach, what makes more sense? So I think with that, you know, sports are getting more like the real world, which I guess you got to take the positives and the negative with that.
Real talk. Well, look, man, I'm glad we got a chance to chop it up. This has been the All Around Bros. Please like, comment, subscribe. If there's anything that you guys want to hear us talk about, let us know. We got the new Madden game coming out in a couple of months. We got the NBA finals wrapping up in a couple of months. Of course, we got the NFL draft coming up in late April, I believe it is. Whole lot of things to talk about. And even between now and all those things, we're going to be chopping it up on a random variety of topics. You guys have something, let us know. Take it easy. God bless. Thank you for rolling with us. Peace out.
Peace out.
Baby love, when you're in my head, I can't think. When you're